a little late.
Oh,
We ready, folks? Call the meeting to order of our zoning commission.
6:04.
Let's stand and pledge the allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I mentioned Jody was planning to join online. She's not there yet. So we'll just let her in when she joins, and we do have a forum, so we can business as usual.
Proceed. We'll look over our agenda and then we'll ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
Move we approve the agenda.
a second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. Any discussion? Not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Approve our previous minutes.
I move to approve our minutes.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve our minutes. Any
Who
discussion?
was second?
Wait,
Thank you.
any discussion? Not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. We've approved our minutes. Opening remarks by Laura.
All right, I kind of gave you a rundown earlier. We've got an accessory dwelling unit ordinance and definitions that need to be updated or created as a draft for you guys. So that is what I've put to you to start reviewing. I've included for reference the Senate file that says what is required and what is prohibited from the state. You've got some references in the ordinance to other state codes, and I included those as printouts also in case you need to look at those. Those are also in your pile. And then I also included a timeline from Region 6. The contract will hopefully be approved at the next Board of Supervisors meeting. It just came in, so they have time to get it on the agenda, I believe. So that timeline includes like, it didn't sound like they'd want the next meeting until the end of January for getting started. You guys have a great jump start on the draft for survey and contacting people to be involved. So if anybody comes back to me, I'm starting a list of email contacts. I will get that out to the people that have agreed to join us and say, hey, we're planning to meet on this date. Hope you can make it. Whenever we do get that date finalized, we can still keep meeting earlier in January for ordinance updates if we're ready to move forward with the public hearing on the ADUs, if we're ready to move forward with more review of the wind or start some other ones, we can keep working separate of that timeline. So that's not like we're not meeting until the end of January. I think that's all I got for you. So
What have you gotten for commitments for task force?
Rob will be there, contacted me. I'll let you know that. He's got that real estate background and a couple other
Appraisal.
a couple other things on his resume that sound like they'd be helpful in multiple areas. Chris Barons from the Conservation Department, he's the director there, has expressed interest, so I got him on the list. Wes Ray from the assessor's office, had some concerns about possible conflict of interest, but as far as lending expertise to the task force part, he's willing to help out with that too. So there's only three.
Great.
Get back to me. Yeah.
Start. I was hoping we'd get half a dozen, but maybe we will yet.
Jody called me and said that she had her 10 copies out to banks, libraries, couple businesses, so she's got her area up there covered. I have not got mine out. I apologize. Holidays were very rough for me. So if you guys need more printouts, let me know. You do have your electronic copies if you need to forward emails to anybody. And then just remind them to let me know or let you know, and you can forward to me so I can get them all on a contact list together. So we know who's interested.
Can you, since I I don't know what everybody did. I don't know if you've told Laura, everybody, but could you make a list of everybody that's already been contacted by these guys? I mean, if you
If you guys let me know, I will compile a list, yes.
can do that. The only reason I ask is, Sue Carnahan at Lincoln Savings Bank, she's kind of overcommitted on things, so she wouldn't be on the committee, but she had told me that she could help me pinpoint other businesses. So I didn't want to duplicate anything if there was.
Well, and if you're just randomly talking to somebody in Casey's that you know, think would be great, I mean, it doesn't have to all be people that we.
No, but I mean, that was just what she said. She would be she said, I'm willing to help you.
Yeah, if you
Sure,
guys
so.
want to just text me or email me whenever you say, hey, we contacted this person already, just in case there's overlap in, you know, geographical area where you're doing business or something. I can occasionally send out an update to you guys, blind copy, just so you all know. So you're not hitting up the same people, because,
Right.
you know, if you ask somebody too many times, they just say no, finally to get you to stop. So, yeah, I can compile that.
Okay. Thank you.
So I know who said yes, I don't know who's been asked, so. We'll get that. That, if you want to rearrange some of the agenda, I don't think you need to like vote on that, but since ADU might want to push that ahead of the wind energy.
Mhm. I wanted to ask you about the timeline for Region 6 for this
Okay,
comprehensive land use plan.
yes,
Did you mean that? You said end of January, or what did you,
that's what Marty said.
that we would start meeting as a group, or that we have to have information to them by then?
Well, this says, an initial. Says initial suggested process for the first meeting would be meeting with the zoning commission and any other participants. Review the process and timeline and seek input on who should be invited. Review general demographic data and big trends, review very early preliminary survey draft. Goal is for a 1-hour meeting, target date late January.
Okay,
I think he meant January of 2026. January 26th is a Monday. The calendar's not up yet. So when I read this, I was thinking late target date, January 26th. I'm like, we can do it the last week of January, that's fine. I do have a couple dates that Karen is not available if we're looking at any other dates in January. But yeah, if he wants to meet that last week in January, that'd be the 26th through the 30th. Maybe just keep that open. I don't know if he'd be looking for that last week exactly. I haven't talked to him at all yet. But like I said, this email just came in this afternoon.
okay.
And since it hasn't been signed as a contract yet, I didn't want to make too many inroads without having that. Because they would be, you know, tracking what he's doing with our time.
And did you say you're expecting the supervisors to sign that maybe?
I would guess. I haven't talked to any of them yet, but since we have this early enough, it did get sent to Mark. I know they're waiting for the contract, so my guess is it'll be on Monday's agenda to approve this and sign it, and then we can move forward with Region 6. I just didn't want to do too much communicating, without having the contract officially in place. So, I'll likely contact him already early next week, if he doesn't reach out first.
What's the rest of the board feel? Do you want to look at these accessory dwelling units now, or do you want to look at the wind energy WECS ordinance?
I don't care what we do.
Unless you want to go through the timeline more. I mean, it's pretty explanatory, so. 9 meetings to get through a year and
Well, we figured out to 9, what he's recommending.
well,
Yep, I see it now.
meeting number 9.
Could you reach out, how many of these have they done? Is this,
I can ask. I think he's done at least a few. I just don't have.
yeah, I'd just like to find out how much experience they do have in it.
That's
Yeah.
nice to know.
And you can always, if they don't want to answer it, you can always bring it up in person at a
Yeah.
first meeting.
Yeah.
Now, if they, and what their political agenda would be, you know, if they lean one way or lean the other differently from what our county does. You know, creating this land use plan.
More of an urban versus a rural.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, what their background is and what.
Yeah, I'd like to know that too.
If they're, when they're putting that land use plan together, they're putting in our values.
Right.
Or things that they feel internally that they like.
if you could ask them how many they've done and then which ones they've done specifically.
Yeah, which,
We could take a look at them, just to see kind of,
You can find out what they.
What their philosophy is.
Yeah,
yeah, right, and that, the philosophy, that's,
well, there are, it's not like they do it and we'd have no input. So the first couple meetings, it's just, reviewing the demographic data and trends of the county. So that's like historical data, not just, which can be skewed depending on who reviews it and compiles it. But then for meeting number 2, have a general planning workshop, get feedback points to prioritize. I feel like that's where they're gonna be getting a lot of how the county wants to move forward. And then, if you skip to number 4, everybody's reviewing the survey results and open meeting topics and discussing general policy goals for those different topics. So that'd be us discussing it. And I feel like that means they would be taking our feedback as my interpretation of this. Which again, when he goes through the process and the timeline of the first meeting, a lot of these questions can come up again and be clarified by them. And then meeting 5, review and approve a final draft of policies for different topics. That'd be us reviewing that draft and the task force reviewing that draft. So I'd say if it's not the direction that we want it to go, we can say
change it.
we say we want to change certain parts. So hopefully after those earlier meetings, they get an idea of how the county wants to go.
See, meeting 2 is a well-publicized public meeting.
All of our meetings are well.
They expect a crowd there, though, because they're talking about tables, sharing their feedback.
Oh, we got a couple we can set up back there.
That's right.
We're
We'll
not
see if
getting a
they-
different room though.
We'll
We're
see
gonna
if
also.
they show up.
Yeah, maybe we can, for that one that they want to be well publicized, we can come up with a Facebook post to see if Karen can ask the department heads that have a lot of followers, like sheriff's department, maybe. To push something out. I know a lot of people follow Karen just for the supervisor updates and such, so. Maybe we could have those people that have social media push that out, kind of along the same lines as when we'll get the survey out.
I just see meeting 3 is right during planning time, April 26th.
Which we could probably
Adjust that a little, maybe. couldn't you?
adjust it a little, yeah. I mean, I would have that as a concern to bring up at the first meeting. I mean, meeting 2, target meeting date, March 26th, isn't that smack in the middle of planning season?
well,
No,
Is that too
March
early?
26th early, yeah.
well, and again, like you said, is it just March of 2026 and not March 26?
Right,
So I mean, that could be at the beginning of March and it could be,
Sometime
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
so that one probably wouldn't affect you as
I
much.
mean, there are some though where it's like, so yeah, set the meeting date of April of 2026, so we could move up April maybe depending on their availability. The only ones that have specific dates, it looks like, send out the survey by 5/1. If we have the draft ready, preliminary draft, that might move up earlier in the year.
All right.
I don't know, they might be set on having it in this order. Like I said, I haven't discussed with him that we had gotten that far with the preliminary draft. And of course, when we have a task force, we would like them to review and add other opinions. There might be some stuff that we just, as a group, didn't think about. But it is good to have a starting place like that, and I think that helped jumpstart it quite a bit. And asking all these people now, getting the seed planted, we'll get a lot more heads up for getting a timeline going, so. But yeah, I'll, after it gets signed, I'll get in contact with Marty and work out where we're at and potential next dates, and I'll send out the notice for you guys to check your calendars.
it's really be good to get copies like you suggested, ones that they've done.
All right.
Yep, I got that note.
Just kind of see how they're laid out, how they.
If you can tell us, yeah, just when they send the supervisor signs and just let us know, and then we can have a list of the counties they've done. We can look it up online. That's no big deal.
Or I can reach out to the counties and have the counties send it to me, Marty wouldn't have
Yeah.
to, but yeah, we'll get those.
Sounds good.
A lot more printer ink.
Yeah.
Yeah. $175, but more.
It did cost more to print. They give you the printer.
Yeah. They can keep you buying ink, that's.
Well, should we move on to the number 7, discussion of new wind energy conversion systems ordinances? What does the board want to do tonight? Is that all right?
Was there anything we had to do on this that,
I would like you guys to read through it, review it, treat it like it's the first draft of any of our other ones. That is by no means ready to go to the public. That's
Okay.
I created that from scratch, so that is for you guys to review and see if we need to change. And
but you don't need action on this tonight then?
I mean, if we need to revise anything, I need to know so I can update it. If you think it's ready to go to a public hearing,
Maybe
you
we
could
should
vote for
look at
that.
it first,
Yeah.
then.
So is this pulled out of our ordinance, or is this a separate thing all on its own?
It'll have to get put into the major ordinance. It's
Okay.
not there yet. Which I've been looking at other counties, and when we did the zoning fees update, we just changed the whole big ordinance. We updated the whole thing. Other counties, when they do regular updates, kind of, or new ordinances or, changing something, they only codify it once a year. So they kind of have it as a accessory draft or accessory document until they codify it all together, I think. So this would be like, we'd make it would be implemented as an ordinance, but it wouldn't be set in with an article number and all its actual numbers until we codify it all once a year or something. Of course, if they're like, no, let's just stick it in and do the whole thing, we might do that too. But we do not have anything relating to accessory dwelling units in our current ordinance, except for the fact that it says you can only have one primary dwelling on a parcel. Unless you get a conditional use permit, and that's only while you're building a second building. So state law changed where we have to allow at least one. We can allow more if you want to allow more. I wrote it as only one. So that's something you'd have to discuss if you want to keep it as one, if you want to allow more. I haven't seen anywhere where it says that you are allowed to restrict where they can build it. So if they have a 40 acres, you could have your primary dwelling here and your accessory dwelling on the total other side. So I don't think we can restrict that. I don't know how you would word that otherwise. And for utilities and such, I don't know if anybody want to do that, but of course, if you got like your family and you got your grown son who wants to start farming, I mean, as long as they meet the, area ratio of not filling in too much of your space of a smaller parcel, you don't get anywhere near that farmland, so.
Let's look at this then now.
Yeah.
If you want to get it ready for,
So for the definitions, the highlighted parts are the new parts that I've either added to an existing definition, or that first paragraph is creating a whole definition. The second page that has the ordinance is all new, so I didn't highlight the whole thing because I didn't want to waste it.
page under. Talking about number 3, A3 at the bottom. The use of a flat formed or corrugated sheet metal or plastic type material for roof is prohibited. talking about steel roof there. Where are you?
Sorry, one sec.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Jody's texting.
Gated sheet.
I don't know. Are they talking about the old fashioned,
The old wavy, yeah, I would think. I would assume.
but what's form?
Okay, what was your question? Sorry.
Number three, what are you defining? The use of flat formed or corrugated sheet metal or plastic type material prohibited, but Your turn.
Okay, so in our ordinance, instead of having it tabbed over for this whole part, so single family dwelling, it says all new building permits after the enactment of this ordinance shall meet the following standards, colon. And then it said 400.78 as a new definition. So I was gonna fix that definition and tab it all over. So I didn't actually change anything in the wording, I just changed the formatting. So that is explaining what a single family dwelling unit is for the principal portion of such a building shall have a continuous, complete frost protected barrier foundation, perimeter foundation. A manufactured home as defined in this ordinance shall be placed upon piers per the requirements, but said home must meet the foundation requirements. Blah, blah, blah. The building shall have the exterior wall covering either wood or masonry finish or its appearance and or vertical or horizontal groove siding or lap siding or its appearance. Or use of flat form corrugated sheet metal or plastic type materials for roof covering. Oh, not that. It says use of flat
right,
form or corrugated sheet metal, or plastic type materials for roof covering is prohibited. Architectural sheet metal is permitted. So that was all in there. I just changed how it was formatted. I didn't change any of the wording.
do they make a roof shingle that is kind of a hard plastic?
Yeah. They make everything anymore.
Yeah.
I'm assuming architectural sheet metal, is that the metal roofs?
That's the form, right, yeah.
Okay.
Which, how is that different than the corrugated sheet metal? Is that just better quality?
I don't know, you get into semantics, I think it's all the same,
Technically, this was written in 1998, so I think
yeah.
materials have got on that. So everything under that section, I just changed the A, the 1, 2, 3, because they had it as a separate definition and it didn't make sense.
Can we just strike three?
That's what I would think.
Reviewing that, but
I think with
What?
a lot of that new plastic stuff is really good. The new,
Comes in sections, does it, or? Yeah,
looks like shingle.
the only parts of that definition that I actually changed was B on the back page.
right here on the front page.
So I just added a B to this and I changed the formatting. I mean, we're not really reviewing that section.
Yeah, that'd be something about the roof.
Here, yeah.
Told,
Although I get what they're saying because
It says plastic type materials.
they do use that in building products now. I mean, in roofing, they do use that. So I get what you're saying that I'm not sure there's really anything out there you need to prohibit other,
They may want a sun porch or something on it with the, then they put the plastic up. I
right?
mean, you know, I don't know.
well, we have building code about what material should be, it's just said that this has to meet the same requirements.
It's a primary dwelling,
Yeah,
because this is all for the accessory.
like the shingles on the roof have to be. And they would have to be like, well, there's one in here says it doesn't have to match.
And this was written in 1998, you said?
Yeah.
Okay, so it has to be outdated anyway.
Meet the same requirements that a residence.
Like the,
The one, and this is bringing up like, and then the Sears farm over there in Benton County where they took the corner of the Morton building and built a house in it.
Hmm.
And it's a Morton building, but the one corner of there is where the mother lives.
Right,
And, you know, interior, it's all fixed up and everything like that, but that's steel Morton building, it doesn't match the house. And if you were gonna build a house, I don't know if that would, of course, now they use the steel roofing on.
Are you saying that somebody lives in the Morton building and then there's also a house on the property?
Right, there was a house.
So that's an example of an accessory dwelling unit that is technically illegal right now.
yeah,
Right, except it is in Benton County, and when they did that, they changed
Oh,
it from a what is farmland with a dwelling to an actual, like a residential.
Residential,
And we're a little, I'd have to look at the map again or something, but they sent a thing out to all the neighbors, do you approve of changing the zoning on it? So it's like and they made them put in a separate septic system, you know, which was just ridiculous. Cause it was right there, it's just run a pipe over, and,
hook up to it.
yeah, for grandma.
Why?
Yeah.
That's
But they,
crazy.
but it was a separate unit, so they.
Well, it depends on if the septic was big enough to handle an extra unit, because I know some septics are just big enough for whatever house. it
Well,
is.
that one was.
And the house might have outgrown what the additional septic was and they never fixed it, because I've heard stories.
That one was a very good, big septic system and relatively new. It wasn't original. But
I get-
anyway, so specifying, it's kind of, because that was one of the things in one of the descriptions where it could be part of the main building or a separate building. And it wouldn't need to necessarily go through and change the appearance. Like this corner of the building is gonna be the accessory dwelling. If the interior, you know, if it's got good fire protection, if it's a good, you know, insulated interior, sound and healthy and everything like that, could be sufficient, I would think.
I just think the way this is written, it's not.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, this was from 1998,
Yeah.
so
There's been a lot of material changes since then.
Right,
I think I would just say keep somewhere better and get rid of it.
yeah.
Not, you know, because I think plastic is gonna be used more and more in the future.
So do you want,
Well,
I think it's just at number 3.
That's exciting on houses, there would have vinyl, you know.
Right.
I mean, do you have anything that we
Just
need to
locate.
prohibit for use, or just get, just say any type of, any type is prohibited as long as it is approved by your,
As long as it meets code for the primary residence, right? You know,
Oh, well, you'd have to, reference some code then, because the only building code we have is state code. We don't have a building code for the county. So we
So-
have to meet state code.
Does. Well, I could ask you this question, you probably don't know the answer off the top of your head. So the building code for the state, that the state of Iowa has, is that updated all the time, or is that? That's okay,
Did they address roofs?
I don't know.
Cause we need to find that out if they address roofs or not in.
why don't you, while we're kind of figuring out things, why don't you look at Iowa building code?
Yep, that's what I'm doing.
Okay.
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, I got another question, Commission. So these houses are becoming more popular because housing is so expensive to build. Concrete is
Oh, there's
crazy.
one over there, Garwood now,
Right, and there's one out here east of Tama, and I,
a house.
shouts where they.
The shed house?
Feed shed, they live in part of it.
It's basically like a Morton
You've got
building.
one out there, beautiful place.
Which is part of what an ADU is. That is one of the definitions as part of an accessory building. So it is in there.
So I don't wanna, but we don't wanna prohibit that.
No,
It's not prohibited in these, what we've got here now, is it?
no, this should
It's
not,
included.
yeah, this should be,
Underneath some of
Yeah.
these definitions.
this would be the accessory dwelling. If you built something on the side of that somebody else was gonna live in, so that's what this,
But this is the accessory, in its
this doesn't go to the
main primary.
primary. Yeah,
So it'd be included as a unit that is part of an accessory structure. A Morton building would be considered an accessory structure, so if you have your apartment inside the Morton building, that would be the accessory dwelling.
but if you
But
have
if-
no house.
But if it's your house,
That's the only
if you have the Morton building that you built as your house, is that, that's the primary, right?
dwelling.
That's the primary,
Okay,
Right,
so that has nothing to do with any of this.
That's not what we're discussing today.
Yeah.
if that's a primary.
That's
Right.
Uh,
because you're right, more people are building those.
Yeah. Well, I think I'd look at it myself, I'm
I would too.
younger.
But it's possible in that case, they might already have this house,
Right,
their Morton building. And then finally be ready or saved up enough money to build a larger house, then it goes the other way too. If the Morton building could become the accessory building and the primary could be
Right.
larger, then it just has to meet that ratio.
It's just, whatever you have on your property, if there's two things people are living in, then one of them is primary, one's a secondary.
But the accessory one has to meet that level.
Right.
Of you can't be larger than 1,000 square feet or 50% of the primary dwelling.
Right.
So,
You see these shelves are 2,000 square
Oh,
feet,
yeah.
3,000 square feet, you know.
They're big.
They're big, yeah.
but it would only be the actual living area if it's a corner of the larger
Oh, no,
one.
they live in the whole thing. I mean, it's,
Well, then that would count as the full.
yeah.
The primary
So
dwelling.
the only way they could have another primary dwelling is if they turned that into something else.
They could build a secondary dwelling, but it'd have to be small, this
Smaller.
same ratio would have to be,
Right.
one would have to be
Right.
smaller.
Now you were gonna look up the roofs, right?
Right.
Well, she was just kind of gonna look at, I wondered how old, like if they update Iowa's, the state building code.
I mean, they mark it as like, all the codes are marked as like 2025 code, but more honestly, I think it says, you can see when it changed. I don't know which building.
I would imagine if it's up to date, then this down here is not, it wouldn't even be in that, or it would prohibit all of that.
So it's either 1,000 square feet or 50% of the size of the. It could be larger than 1,000 square feet.
Right.
I made it. Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me? It's
Yes.
Jody.
Hi, Jody.
I
Well,
finally got here.
Yeah.
Stupid computer. I have a
We're talking
question
about-
though. What happens if
Yep.
this house or whatever would become the primary and the house that was originally there would become the secondary?
It
I
just
mean-
has to meet the proportions, it can be up to 1,000 square feet. Or, so the greater of 1,000 square feet or 50% of the primary building. So
Well, that's
if
what
you've
I'm saying.
got-
What happens if the house becomes the primary building? I mean, if the original house is, say, 1,500 square feet, and then we're gonna build a house and they want that as their primary structure, then where does that leave us?
Then that had to be
3,000.
3,000 square feet.
3,000 square feet, which is
And then the
nothing.
house
I
would
mean,
be-
that's only that's not that big of a metal building.
Yeah.
If they're using the whole thing as their primary.
How do you spell that?
It's house with an S on it.
SHOUSE thing.
Yeah, that's,
Okay, so, for future reference, if you wanna look at
What's the
yourself,
difference?
building code is 103A.
it's built like a machine.
So if you look up Iowa code
It
103.
looks like a machine shed, the house, exterior anyway. Most of it.
Are we looking at roof?
Yeah,
Roof, yeah.
well, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's neat.
Um,
We like it.
You do?
Roof system, roof system includes roof. Covered.
Accessory.
Roof weatherproofing.
We can-
Roof insulation. Okay. 1 second. What would be another search term besides roof?
Well, it says roof covering here.
Yeah, they don't have. Spell
That's weird.
Yeah, there's.
What's the question?
She said she can't find anything in the actual Iowa building code that talks about roofs.
it. We'll just talk about contractors for roofs.
So,
I might be looking in the wrong code then. The state building code.
We're looking at that on the last page, very top, number 4. Rental use of accessory dwelling units will be required to comply with Iowa code. To me, the accessory dwelling unit is something where it's family, or if you have an employee that's working or something like that. Just to build a rental unit, kind of to me, a separate entity. Not really.
Okay, the problem with that though, is that the new Iowa law says, the following is prohibited. requirements related to, let's see, where is that?
People are building stuff all the time now, renting it out.
Okay, so number 4 on the back. It's prohibited to place restrictions on the occupancy of either the single-family residence or the accessory dwelling by requiring that the property owner be a resident, requiring a familiar marital or employment relationship to exist, and, or restricting based on income or age. So you can't restrict that to only be related or employed. So it is supposed to be usable as a rental,
Yeah.
long-term rental unit.
But
I
this-
mean,
And we're not talking about urban here, what's in city limits either, right? We're talking about country.
every county has to allow this, so, I mean, yeah.
Right, in the city, they can have building code where everybody on this street has to have a brick house, and everybody in this area, and they still have.
Yeah, there's a city portion of the ordinance. I didn't print that, so they do have that included. You can't require it to look like the same or be more restrictive than what your single family residence is. So it doesn't have to look the same. It doesn't have to conform.
Right. But this is outside city limits, like, in a lot of building codes in the city, their outside buildings have to be the same architecture as what the house is.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
can't restrict that anymore. They've got to allow whatever architecture they want in the cities. Yep. At least,
Bigger
it
cities
doesn't
have
matter for us. 'cause we're
HMOs and that. The bigger cities have those,
Yeah,
what do they make HMO stand for again?
HOA.
HOA.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter for us. We're not doing city.
Right.
So yeah,
It's an association.
right, like Hickory Hills is that.
Yeah.
Or Hickory Hollow, you know, they build an outbuilding, it's gotta be match the same.
so yeah, if there's an HOA, there's more of a gray area, but nobody in the country that we're dealing with is gonna have HOAs, so I'm not worried about adhering into that. But no, we can't restrict it to be family, employment, anything like that. They can rent it to whoever they want, and they don't have to live on the property to rent out both properties then.
What about the roof? We haven't got that figured out yet.
Well, I'm kind of looking too, mostly what I'm finding, they're not really talking about restricting anything. They're just talking about it has to be able to withstand wind, snow load. Has to be. They're talking about asphalt shingles, wood shingles, shakes.
If nothing else, just omit number 3.
Yeah, there is number 3.
Well, I think couldn't we just put in there? If what we use is the state of Iowa's building code, couldn't we just reference that then?
But if the building code doesn't reference any roofing, then no,
We're referencing nothing.
you're referencing nothing, exactly.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time.
Okay, state building code 1038.7, scroll down. So it says the state building code commissioner is empowered and directed to formulate and adopt. Gosh, you know, all the words in that sentence, trying to find the actual meaning of the sentence.
Yeah, 3,
Some reasonable rules designed to establish minimum safeguards
that makes it easy.
in the erection and construction of buildings and structures to protect human beings who live and work from fire and other hazards. Rules shall include reasonable provisions for the following: installation of equipment, standards or requirements for materials to be used in construction, manufacture and installation of factory-built structures, and accessibility for use. So there might be another document out there from the building code commissioner. It's kind of what I got from this.
3 of us are in favor of just omitting number 3.
That it's a fun or more building, that doesn't. That's.
Is there a concern about people just not using actual roofing materials?
They're gonna get wet in a hurry, so
Yeah,
we're gonna change it, I
I think
think.
we're gonna build the house or build the structure as good as they can.
So just,
You got what you build, if you build a piece of junk and that, you just threw your money away, so. I move that I second it.
to strike number 3.
Moving a second to omit number 3 on the first page of our single family dwelling under 400.77.
So then it would only read, A, the principal portion of such a building for a single family dwelling shall have continuous and complete frost protected perimeter foundation. A manufactured home as defined in this ordinance shall be placed upon piers for the manufacturer's requirements, but said home must meet foundation requirements contained herein. So we're talking about manufactured homes, namely it shall have a complete perimeter barrier, building shall have an exterior wall. So this is just for manufactured homes.
Yeah.
Okay. And so manufactured homes will have an exterior wall covering of wood or masonry finish or its appearance and or vertical or horizontal roof siding or lap siding or its appearance. And then we'll leave off number 3 entirely. So then the part that I added was B on the next page.
So the only thing I found, the Iowa Roofing Contractors Association talks about metal roofing. It says, corrugated galvanized iron is galvanized steel manufactured wavy corrugations to resist lateral flexing and fixed with exposed fasteners. So, I mean, it sounds like they're still using that. They have copper roofing, standing seam metal with concealed fasteners, mechanically seamed metal, flat seam metal, steel coated, and then they go into shingles. So. Oh, there's a solar shingle.
So I think that B looks good though, doesn't it? Accessory dwelling units allowed per parcel.
Mhm. Yeah, motion on the floor. Is there any more discussion on omitting number 3 on the bottom of the first page?
No, because I think any contractor you hire to build is gonna, they're gonna know Iowa code, so
Well,
if
there's
there's,
gonna be a manufactured home, so it's coming from.
right. I have a manufactured home and
Do you want to finish the vote on that?
Yes. All in favor, say aye.
I,
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. We've eliminated number 3.
Who first did that? Wait. You second?
I did.
And we'll explain that change also when we get to the public hearing portion later. So B was added, no problem with B.
No, I don't see a problem.
No.
So the other changes for definitions, I completely added that first one. We'd have to figure out whatever number it would be, because it'd be new. I took that definition from another county. That's why it's kind of long. 400.30, that's an existing one. I changed the yellow parts. I added primary dwelling unit, because I think it said it 1. And then added the part about the accessory dwelling units. We already talked about the next one. We have a section on parking requirements. That's the next area. We are not allowed to require extra parking. So, for the,
Just suggested that they have parking. Is that?
I added that. It's not required to add additional parking for a dwelling unit. So our ordinance currently says a single family detached housing is required to have 2 spaces per unit. You could take that to read a single dwelling unit needs 2 spaces, an accessory dwelling unit needs 2 spaces. But we can't require it because we're prohibited from requiring additional space. So,
That's why I put
I
that.
just have to figure out where to add that, but I wanted to make sure you guys were aware that accessory dwelling units are recommended to add parking, but not required. If you don't want to even say that and just say, have single family detached parentheses and accessory dwelling units equal 2 parking spaces. We could just do it like that.
and mostly this is out in the country where people park anywhere they want anyway, so.
You're just trying to keep them off the road, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't see anything wrong with leaving that recommended.
Yeah.
Just recommended. Yeah, that's
You
fine.
got it.
Otherwise, it might be just a mud pit out there.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, the last update that wasn't part of the actual ordinance section is that 503.1 under general district or districts and general regulations, this would be for all districts. So this is where we currently have the part where it says you can only have one dwelling. And if you're building a new building for your dwelling and you're keeping the old one up while you're building, you need a cup. This would be saying if the new construction of the second house meets all regulations and size proportion requirements of the ADU, then the conditional use permit is not required. The only thing that might cause a snag in that is later in the ordinance, I say that you need to have a separate E911 address, which when we get to that, I'll explain. I did ask Jacob at the E911 department. He has not gotten back to me. I asked him if he would require this or not. I think it'd be a good idea to have separate ones, but we'll go with whatever he recommends. So if he comes back with a different recommendation, we'll revise it before we get to the part of putting it through the public hearing. But that's what I started with and,
I think they should each have one.
well, cause I mean, especially if it's like primary dwelling here.
Yeah.
The other one's 20 acres away on a 40 acre.
Even if they're close.
Even if they're side by side. I'd have
Right,
them
and then for
Right.
emergency purposes, if you've got
Right.
ambulance coming, if you've got fire coming, at least you know
separate.
where
See,
They
yeah,
know where to go.
to.
Yeah.
So, that's why I think it should be in there. I did ask Jacob's opinion, last week. Holidays and all that, I haven't heard back yet, so I'll check in with them again before we have our next meeting, but that could cause a problem with this section though here with the general regulations. If we say, if you're building a new house in your old one, you don't need the cup if it meets the ADU requirements, will we still require the 911 address?
And we should.
Because you don't know how long they're gonna keep that up. You don't know how long construction will be. But then if it's an additional charge to have the E911 address and eventually getting rid of the house, then you have an extra E911 address up there. That'd be something to consider. Or if you wanna have stipulations about if you're building something new, as long as it meets the size requirements, but is removed within X amount of time, you don't need the E911 address. Because obviously they're not living in two places at once. So you might want to add stipulations on that if we're going to keep this part about you don't need a cup if you're just doing it for construction purposes. Because somebody might buy a little old farmhouse that they're just kind of chilling in while they're building the big one. And then they're getting, bulldozing the old one. They could do that in 6 months. They could do that in 2 years. So then
But
it's
just
about,
one family there, so they're gonna,
so they still need the 911.
but then it's also like, well, what if they end up not bulldozing and turning it into rental, then
I don't, I just,
so yeah, it'd be a matter of
Still
if
need
we
to
need
know.
to specify if they need the E911 for that construction type of purpose.
it's for their safety, everybody's safety.
Okay. And then we would just have an extra 911 out there when they get rid of the, okay.
Yeah.
So it would have to meet all regulations, including E911. We could add that in here, including E911.
Yes.
You want me to add that?
I think so.
Okay, all regulations.
I think we agree on that, don't we?
I have a question from back in something you've already gone through that I was catching up on. But a manufactured home also means a double wide trailer as well, that they consider them a manufactured home, as well as a manufactured home that we see as two-part, that is wood construction. So when you're saying that they have to be, if somebody buys a double wide, you're requiring them to put it on a permanent foundation, where so many of them still are on their, what do you call it, a carrier framing or
Axles,
whatever.
you're on the axles, yeah.
They put
They're usually blocked out though. It's all
a
over.
metal,
No, not at
metal.
all. I think, Jody, I think there's a difference between manufactured home and mobile home in our definitions.
Converted.
So, yeah, we have two definitions.
talking to, because I tell you, if you go to Florida, they don't consider a double wide in these fancy parks as a mobile home. They are called and they're sold as a manufactured home. So what is the definition here in Iowa? Is it considered a mobile home or is it considered a manufactured home? That's
Well,
where
we
you're gonna
can-
run into problems.
We can review and revise our definitions on other areas later as well. Right now, 400.60 in our ordinance. A manufactured home is a factory-built structure which is manufactured or constructed under the authority of 42 USC Section 5403 and is to be used as a place of human habitation, but which is not constructed or equipped with a permanent hitch or other device allowing it to be moved other than for the purpose of moving it to its permanent site, and which does not have permanently attached to its body or frame any wheels or axles. A mobile home shall not meet the above definition unless it has been converted to real property. And then for 400.64, definition of mobile home means any vehicle without motive power used or so manufactured or constructed as to permit it being used as a conveyance upon the public streets and highways, and so designed, constructed, or reconstructed as will permit the vehicle to be used as a place for human habitation by one or more persons, but shall also include any such vehicle with motive power not registered as a motor vehicle in Iowa. So that sounds like that one, those keep the wheels, they keep the axle, they keep the hitch.
Well, a lot
Versus
of
the
times you take the
manufactured
wheels
home.
off, but they still don't put them on a permanent basis. Well, I don't know. It's when we come, I guess that problem would have to be solved if somebody wants to do it. I mean, a lot of people don't want to put a permanent foundation under a double wide manufactured home.
Well, I
I mean, they
believe
do
for the
put on
purpose,
wheels, but they aren't,
for
I
the
mean, it's not
purposes of
something
taxes,
you hook the pickup to and go on down the road. That, I mean, that doesn't happen.
for the
So, I
purposes
don't
of
know.
taxes, taking it to real property just means making it so they can't roll off with it again. So I think that's removing the hitch and possibly the axles. So even if it's not on that permanent base foundation, if they remove that, the way that it can move, I think that's considered converting to real property versus like a park model RV, which can still be driven off or moved around and has a registration with the treasurer. You can't have the registration and also tax them for real property. It's one or the other. So in our definition, the manufactured home is only mobile to get to the spot and does not retain any of its mobileness, versus a mobile home keeps the tongue or keeps the axle, keeps the, what's it called? Keeps the hitch. And could be rearranged somewhere else easier than the other one. I don't think either one of those lists the permanent frost barrier.
Say something, remember?
Well, this does bring, to me, it brings up a point. For an accessory dwelling, if you have family, they're just gonna be back for a short period of time, like maybe a year and a half or something, while they're, you know, somebody's in the army and they're gonna be getting out, but I mean, while the daughter's back and the kids, and so you have an accessory dwelling unit. But it's not something you're gonna keep permanently. You really wanna have to put a foundation under it if it's a mobile home. Can you have a mobile home there temporarily?
What do you consider, what do you consider a foundation?
So this says, on number 2 here, we accessory dwelling, you may take the following forms: tiny house, manufactured home, with real property, by being placed on a permanent foundation.
But what is the permanent foundation? Is it just a cement pad?
We have to have that definition somewhere, I guess.
Maybe,
Like big blocks.
you know, maybe a temporary
Because,
home isn't considered an accessory dwelling unit.
well,
You consider-
No,
So-
temporary mobile home would be part of the dwelling
I
unit.
mean, if you bring it temporarily, and then it's gonna be gone in a year and a half when.
Well, there was a
it's out of
there was a
service.
family in Garwin who had their primary dwelling, and then, their daughter and her son had been living in Marshalltown. They decided to put a mobile home on their property. When I watched them put it on, they never put it on cement. They put it on the ground. It just had the skirting, and I think they put straw around it. I don't know if they meant her to live there. I mean, they didn't do anything special to it.
Well, we definitely want to keep the assessed for real property portion. If you want to change the permanent foundation, I guess we could.
I guess I wonder what permanent, like, are they just talking about a cement pad or
We
block?
don't have a definition for that.
You gotta block them up, otherwise you're walking through it and it's all moving all over. I've lived in those before. That's, yeah, you gotta have some type of support underneath.
Well, do you want to change it to permanent or semi-permanent?
Maybe that'd be the best way to handle it.
Cause I mean, permanent can always, I mean, it's not indefinitely permanent, it's just
Yeah,
not
a
block.
real definition.
How would you wanna word that?
Where's that at?
What is this?
Number
This is the
2 on the.
Second page.
one of the things, you know, the accessory dwelling unit, it's registered for tax purposes and so on. And just what it would, basically, that's all we want to really require, right? That it,
Well, we also don't want them moving around and having to reassess their setbacks all the time either. So it's not like they're gonna park it here and then save the grass and move it somewhere else, like you do with the RV that you keep in your yard.
So could you just put permanent or semi-permanent foundation?
Do we need to define permanent or
well,
semi-permanent?
yeah, I think we could just leave this like this and that's kind of up to the,
Yeah, it says a letter complete
Well, you can always remove a permanent foundation if you remove it mostly,
foundation with piers.
but you'd wanna have it stable enough.
Right. I mean, I guess you could interpret it any way you wanted when you put it on, so. I mean, I don't care.
That is, what do you think?
And can you require tie downs? That would constitute kind of a permanent foundation situation? I don't know. That's why I'm asking. I don't know.
Tie downs we used to use, you just screw in the ground. I mean, they just screw them down in, you ran a cable up over the base of
Yep.
the foundation.
They're anchored in concrete, so I don't know.
Sorry, I hit him with a lawnmower
Well, you know, they were underneath the trailer.
underneath the
They were
trailer.
underneath, and then you had skirting around that, so
Oh, you never see it anyway.
nobody saw it.
They
You had
did,
to have skirting.
they did, yeah,
It'd get a little cold in the winter time.
right.
one of the things, it says it's provisions for the cooking, bathroom, kitchen, has, like the sanitation and so on, so that's, you know, if, like a mobile home or motor home, you know, you're not gonna go out there dumping that thing all the time. If you got sanitation in there, I think that means you're gonna have something piped in, right?
You need septic, yeah.
Or get something,
Right,
system
so-
of some kind.
Adding a permanent foundation isn't really any other issue. I mean, if you're gonna go as far enough to that you're putting in the sanitation and then it's,
Leave it as it is, right?
Yeah.
and if they're gonna do something just temporary, then that's when you just convert the porch and do something else do a little differently.
When does the county consider, say, a double wide full manufactured home, not a, permanent dwelling on a basement, whatever, but a double wide that comes in, they set it up. When does the county consider it real estate to tax? Does it have to be on a foundation, or how does the county look at it?
I would have to talk to the assessor's office for exactly when they do
I think
it.
it has to be on a foundation. Anything that's on skids is not taxed.
I
know
think
that.
it has to do with the hitch.
Yeah, because it's movable, exactly.
So if you leave the hitch on, you leave the wheels on, you just,
Yeah.
Movable.
Well, and that's,
As long as there's still registration and a title, I think that's part of it. So if there's, for like the RV stuff, if there's a title and registration on it, that is not real property, that's a vehicle.
Okay.
I don't know timeline wise when that changes, if they have to surrender to the title or how that works with mobile homes, we'd have to probably check more with Wes and Melissa on that.
to say it on permanent foundation and assessed as
Yeah.
for real estate taxes, that's. Or RV units are not allowed as unless converted. So,
Did we answer your question, Jody, or not?
I think so. I mean, if the county doesn't consider it real property until it's on a permanent foundation, I guess the way this is worded would
We
be
can
all
change
right.
how it's worded. The whole
Well,
point.
a lot of these tiny homes anymore, they leave them on wheels and hitches. They don't put them on foundation because they move them. That was the whole point of having a tiny home, is that
Mhm.
you parked it for a while and then you could take off someplace else.
But in this case, we're only talking about making it an accessory dwelling unit. You could bring in a tiny home to park it. So do we need to change? Like a semicolon somewhere, because I didn't know tiny houses were that mobile, I guess.
Yeah, they can be.
So change two to say,
Yeah, they can be moved.
Where are you at on that?
number two. Move the or in front of tiny house, or a tiny house manufactured, so semicolon after detached from primary. Or a tiny house, comma, a manufactured or mobile home converted to real property by being placed on permanent foundation. So we would not allow temporary tiny houses to come in. It'd have to be, you'd have to convert it to permanent property. Do tiny houses have titles and like registration?
I would assume they have to have something because they're going down the road. So they have to have some kind of registration, but
Do they have a license? I don't know.
Well, I don't know if they just
I don't either.
I
temporarily get a road use.
wasn't
permit for
paying much
single-
attention. I was watching a woman on a Facebook reel. I was following her along. She bought a tiny home, not a camper. She bought a tiny home and she was living down south somewhere for about 6, 7, 8 months, maybe up to a year. And then she decided to hook up and she moved her tiny house someplace else. And I don't know. She never talked about like, did she have to get any permits or anything to be where she
Well, a
was?
tiny house might also fall under the definition of a park model RV, because that sounds kind of like what I've heard somebody talk about with park model RV.
And
Where later I add that is not included.
On this tiny house, did she have plumbing come in then and septic tied into it?
she didn't get into too much of that. I assumed that she had to have something. I just noticed on Marketplace on Facebook, somebody was selling a tiny home that, it didn't look like a park mall, it didn't look like an RV, but it had wheels so that you could move it around. You left the wheels on it in case you had to move it.
So then let's also look at G then. So as a permanent address is required, I only put park model RV units are not allowed as an accessory dwelling unless converted to real property. Could we say tiny homes or park model RVs are not allowed unless they're converted to real property? Because honestly, I didn't know that they were that mobile.
Yeah.
So you want me to add that up there? I can have that. Tiny house, tiny homes and park model RVs are not allowed unless converted to real property.
I'd add that to it. Yeah.
Okay, so I updated G to add tiny homes. And I changed some punctuation on 2, so that tiny homes were included in being converted to real property. Does that sound acceptable? So if you start at the top, the only places we allow single family dwelling units are those 2, 3, 4, 5 districts: ag, res 1, residential lake, residential 2, residential 3. Those are the only districts that are allowed to have single family dwelling units. You can't have them in
That
commercial
means that-
districts or industrial districts. So that's why those are listed there. We've got the size requirements. The number 1 on that is because some are considered, if it's an attic apartment or like an attic garage apartment, it may have a sloped roof. So, I found in a couple places, and I talked to Wes, if you're counting square footage, you count from where it's at least 7 feet tall. So the angled shorter places don't count as square foot. So those would only really be for, because nobody does A-frame homes anymore. That was for sale. Huh. Yeah. Okay.
And it has a little upstairs loft, has a little kitchen.
Looks like an RV to me. I've seen RVs like that.
Dump somewhere.
It doesn't,
So-
I can't.
So yeah, if it's an attic apartment, it would need to have, that's why it says on B, it has to have its own living, cooking, sanitation, bathroom, kitchen. If you're converting an attic or a garage attic apartment or, an accessory building, it has to have all those things. Cause you can't share it with the primary dwelling. So that's why that's in there. Number 3, we talked about this, must have a E911 address that's separate from the existing prior to the approval of the zoning certificate application. So we're gonna make them have that before I will approve any any zoning permits. So it can't be like, oh yeah, we'll get it later, and then they never do. So this is upfront.
So this particular tiny home says it has a bathroom with a toilet, vanity and shower. Comes with a hot water heater. It's got a propane tank hookup. It's insulated.
It's complete self-sufficient. Self-contained.
And then it says it has, the reason it's $10,500. The reason they reduced it is because of older tires need from some electric work. So
But this say about the septic system or,
it just says here that it has a complete kitchen and loft bedroom, lots of storage, small deck and extra tires, propane tank hookup and hot water heater. That's what it says. It doesn't say like,
started by a cornfield.
I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah,
it was built by. See, there's a whole lot of little tiny homes on there, but they all have wheels.
So yeah, we'll add that to G and 1G and 2 to make the tiny house in the same category as the mobile homes that need, or manufactured homes that need to be converted to real property. If you're looking at 1D, I took that out of the Senate file requirements, so I didn't come up with that on my own. That's why there's that reference to the 103A. And then the building plan shall be reviewed by sanitarian to approve septic because
well, that's good.
if a current house is like maxing its septic, you can't add a whole other house with its own other stuff to it. So that'll need to be reviewed by Chris before. It doesn't really say, should we add before the application or does it matter? Cause I mean, I'd probably talk to him anyway, just to say, hey, do you hear about this one? And then he'd follow up or vice versa, but
I think that's all right like it is.
I think that's what they told us when we built our home, that our septic system was good for our house, but if we
Add it on.
well, not so much if we added on, if we had like if we built another little house or wanted to and put a toilet in it, that we couldn't really hook it into that septic system, it wasn't big enough to have something
on the
else.
toilet.
Yeah.
Okay.
We could do it in our house, I guess.
So we talked about adding the tiny homes to G, but that could also be added to F. What would it sound better adding tiny homes to? The F with the manufactured mobile home or the G as the RVs that are more mobile? You're the one, Carol, you're the one that just looked up all of this.
Well, I don't think we don't really want it associated with an RV because most people that like this
Well,
one,
okay, Park Mall and Visa are not like RVs. They look like tiny cabins.
I've been in those, but I don't think there is insulated. I would have a hard time thinking that you could park even a park model RV on your farm in Iowa and expect to live it in the winter time, because I don't think there is insulated.
So maybe move the tiny homes reference up to F.
I think I would, because like these are all talking about they're insulated.
Okay.
Yeah, they didn't.
So I will add tiny home to manufactured.
I'm kind of wanting a tiny home then.
It's like,
You wouldn't have,
Fall in love with them, aren't you?
an accessory dwelling, but it's
I
built.
suppose that's the point, but
Well, that's what we've got.
Well, that's where I put my grandkids.
When you
You go there.
You gotta play, yeah.
You sleep there.
so
Kitchen and everything, you know.
What's
fellas, I'm gonna move the tiny homes reference from G up to F to be with, because it sounds like it goes more with mobile home and manufactured homes. And then we'll leave G as it is written. And then 2, we already talked about, it can take the following forms. That's pretty much the same as what's in the definition. So we looked at those diagrams last week. The-
principal dwelling. Well,
Part of it
this is,
Yeah, part of a principal dwelling. It could be an addition, it could be a converted attic, a converted basement, but it has to be
It's more late start.
partitioned, yeah.
like this.
It doesn't say.
Do we need to add anything to explicitly say about partitioning if it's part of a principal unit? Cause I didn't really go into that.
I don't think so.
Okay.
That's the difference. Between them.
It's all the same house. It's all the same.
Yeah, well, this is, but we call this is gonna have a separate, like the one here. We having a separate 911 address for
Well, it'd be like an apartment building, you have to have two separate addresses for your apartment buildings. I mean, sometimes you say like unit A,
They have
unit
different
B.
entrances though. I mean, like this is part of the main house, though, you're saying. Or would it have a separate entrance?
Do we want to spell out that you need a separate entrance? Because maybe you don't need a separate entrance, if it's your grandparents
When
living
you're
in the
talking
basement.
like where it's up in the attic. Well, you almost would because you'd be going through the main house otherwise. If you're
It
gonna
depends
call it,
on who you're using it for, if it's like your college age kid. And you still want them to, I mean, I don't know that you'd have a whole dwelling unit for that, because wouldn't you just, you know, probably like use your own kitchen. But I mean, if you have like parents that need a place to live, they want to maintain their independence, but they don't need to do a yard or something. They may want that whole
you'll
separate
just,
unit.
you'll see like this 5,000 square foot house up in Hudson.
But yeah, if you're renting out to somebody totally unrelated, you're gonna wanna have a separate entrance. But I don't know if you wanna spell that
That's
out or let it be up to their
There's
discretion.
stuff like that, and then you go downstairs and there's more bedrooms and another complete kitchen and everything. It's
Yeah.
part of this big, new house there in
Well,
Hudson.
some houses just have multiple kitchens, I mean, that's the
Right.
thing. Some ordinances I've seen, there aren't very many out there because it's a new thing, but some people were working on this before the state changed it. They require like a partition firewall type difference if it's attached or something like that. Type of barrier. So, I mean, I don't know if you guys want to be specific about that as far as like, no, okay.
I think so.
And if you, I mean, we don't need to be specific and spell out, you have to have an exterior entrance, or, I mean. You don't have to, if they don't have to, or just probably leave that out, but if you want them to have an exterior entrance, I think we can have that. I know you can't require that it's, you know, in the back and out of sight, but you could possibly require for safety reasons to have a separate entrance. They're required to have separate utilities, so I mean, a separate exterior entrance is not unheard of. Or I don't know, not unheard of is the wrong word,
And
but
maybe could that be for anybody? I mean,
But now you're not talking about a standalone, building, you're talking about part of the original household, right? You're gonna put
Yeah,
an
if it's-
apartment in a house.
if it's part of the primary dwelling, because that is an option. If you have your paperwork from last week, there were some diagrams where it could be like a
Right.
garage apartment or an attic apartment or a basement apartment. Those would not be a standalone building, so would you need to require exterior entrance separate from the primary dwelling? If you're having a whole 911 address, why not say that? We can add that. It's not part of the prohibited things. I just didn't think about it when I was writing it, so. That's why you're all reviewing it. Where would you want to put that?
Going around in circles,
Mm,
Between 3 and 4? Or 4 and 5, or between 5 and 6, anywhere in there would work. It would flow better. I'd probably say after 3 for sure.
yeah, after 3. What is it exactly you want to put in there, Laura?
Each, or no, each accessory dwelling unit shall have its own exterior entrance,
access.
access point. So we're, each ADU,
I would say either between 5 and 6 or 6 and 7, because you're already talking about in 6 sharing utilities. Or not. So it could just go before 6.
will that work for if it's like in like a part of a house, if it's in a Morton building type thing, to have it to require an exterior entrance? Your access point? Well, you could always cut through the sheet metal and make a door, right?
I suppose.
or shall have its own separate. We'll just say separate
Exterior access.
exterior access. Point. No,
I want it separate, you're repeating yourself though, aren't it? Just they should have to.
shall have a separate, okay. Each ADU shall have a separate exterior access. Door,
Entrance, exit. It's probably good just for safety anyway to have a,
How are you wording that again?
I'm figuring it out.
No, you're-
I'll take your suggestion. Each ADU shall have a separate exterior access. Blank.
And
Where are
I would say each ADU, I would just say an ADU.
Yeah.
You only have,
Okay,
Yeah.
an ADU shall have a separate exterior access egress.
Ingress or egress or whatever.
I don't wanna have two words. Do we have a single word for the?
well, egress is what, that's the window I have in my basement.
Well, we
So
don't just have a, we just wanna have a door,
you'll have
doorway.
a unique entrance, correct?
Yeah, just put entrance.
Entrance. Well, that could also be an egress window. I mean, you can make them climb through a window.
Well,
Do we wanna say doorway?
the right word there.
Yeah,
We know what we mean. You have to get there.
Let's see if we can find any synonyms for doorway.
Apartment buildings have.
Well, egress door is a door designed to meet specific safety requirements for emergency escape. Can be opened quickly.
Synonyms for doorway: entrance, door, entranceway, entryway, entry. Nothing about exiting.
Opening,
Door.
It's gonna come up with something.
Exterior entrance.
I want a exterior entrance door, doesn't that?
I guess if you're worried about, it could be entrance slash exit door.
It's a one-way door that
Yeah,
can only come
But
in.
exterior, I think exterior is the word that. we
Right.
define it.
Right. I don't think it matters.
You know, as.
Or how about an ADU shall have separate exterior access?
There we go. That sounds professional. Good work, Laura.
An ADU shall have separate exterior access
From the primary,
from the primary. Well,
exterior, separate at.
it may not, it may be part of the.
it might be part of an accessory unit. So separate exterior access from any attached building. Structure, any attached structure. Cause that would cover primary or accessory buildings. Right? All right, let me read this again. Structure,
Why does it say from the primary?
well, no, because if it's part of a shop,
Yeah, but if it's in the Morton building, we may go in the Morton building and then the accessory units over here. But it's a separate access from the primary residence.
so they'd have to go through the shop to get out still.
Yeah, cause you're not crossing paths with the primary resident.
So if it's,
Yeah,
if it's in the attic of a garage and it doesn't have exterior access, they'd have to go through the garage to get out. And it's not their garage.
Well, and that would be it. If you're in a garage apartment, unless you have you're walking up outside to get to it, you are walking in and out of the garage. I mean, very few of them have. I've never seen that.
I've seen some up 63.
That's why I think the wording, that it's gotta be separate from the primary dwelling.
Alright.
It's gotta,
So if it's an attached garage to the primary dwelling and it's an apartment above an attached garage, that is still attached to the primary dwelling, right?
Mhm.
So if it's a detached garage, then we don't care. And if it's a shop out in the yard, we don't care if they have exterior access. I mean, they can, obviously, but
Right.
we're not gonna require it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so an ADU shall have separate exterior access from any primary dwelling. Like that, from any primary dwelling.
You think?
Yeah.
Cause that, I would interpret that to include attached garages to the primary dwelling, it'd have to be separate exterior access. Okay. There's a house that they built down on the corner of, is it I don't know if it's T47 anymore, but when you do that jog to go around Grinnell south on whatever, there was that one on that corner. And they definitely had exterior access to their house, because it was like the man door, and you could tell that there was a split, 'cause they had like a little fence or whatever, and then garage door. So, yeah, it was definitely different. They had exterior access, so it's not like they had to go through a full warehouse. I mean, the people that I know that have shops do not keep it fire safety access enough if they had a house in there, so. All right, so ADU shall have separate exterior access from any primary dwelling. And you wanted to put that after 6? Between 6 and 7?
I think either before 6 or after 6.
Let's go before 6.
Okay.
Okay. The 6, we've got 7, like that. Okay, so, part of the state code allowability says that, that's why I added what is now 7. They may share utility lines as long as they can be metered separately. So, I don't know how we would be able to review or enforce that. This is more of a guideline, but if somebody has a complaint, then they can fall back on this, you know, to follow up with whoever's renting it to them. That's more what that's gonna be, is if you're living there and you have a complaint, you have an ordinance to fall back on, but I'm not gonna be out there going, we're gonna should meter utilities.
Well, I was gonna say, a lot of apartment buildings, you just pay a set amount for your, I mean, the whole apartment has one,
That's why my apartment is,
one,
it was,
utility thing, and then you pay so much per month for your utilities.
ours is rolled into our rent, so,
Yeah.
just because it was like built back in the 70s, and when they
Right.
built it, they didn't split it out, so.
Some newer ones, I know they are, that, you know, they'll tell
Yeah,
you,
newer ones, the outside will have its own separate metering
Yeah.
and everything, but yeah,
but you're right, a lot
I
of,
could see how they do that. So yeah, I wouldn't be able to tell if I went out there. But it'd be more for whoever's living there to have that to fall back on,
right,
and that's from the Senate file. I didn't just pull that out of my butt, so. And then the last one, application for zoning certificate is required to build or convert an accessory dwelling unit. The application form will be the same as the standard permit applications. I'll just add a line on there that says accessory dwelling unit
For the one got utility.
it's on 6.
On 6,
on the back page.
back page.
And then just, as part of the zoning certificate, since we do have that size requirement for the ratio between the ADU and the primary, we'll be requiring that they provide that for both the primary and the accessory dwelling unit. Usually when they build a new house, you don't have to tell what the primary is, but in this case, since there is a direct ratio, I'll be requiring that. I'll just add it to the application. And then, I don't think we specify anywhere else. I just kind of threw this one in there, but application must be submitted by the landowner, an approved trustee, or a contractor, just because we have so many land parcels that are owned by a trust. I mean, we got people living on land that they're definitely, you know, they're part of the trust. That's not their name on it. But they should have, if they're the trustee, they should, you know, have full access to that. Then obviously the contractor, we get that a lot. Contractors send it in. But if it's submitted by the contractor, all contact information for the landowner or trustee must be provided. I mean, we could take that out. That might be overkill.
Do we want to require that they have to have a separate metering? Like I say, if the kids living there.
Yeah, that kind of runs into a lot of money.
But I mean,
Did you pull that from a code or anything, or?
It says, so number 5 on the Senate file page. it's prohibited to require new or separate utility lines between the accessory building and the public utility service connections. However, if full utility access that includes a separate metering system for billing purposes can't be provided to the accessory dwelling unit, then the county can require new or separate utility lines. So,
Can't require.
Yeah, but I don't know that we need to, that's kind of up to the owner, I think, whether you wanna,
Exactly. Yeah.
you wanna,
I suppose, yeah, if you're just putting it there for your kid.
Right. And if they're gonna make it a rental property, then they're gonna want it
yeah,
separate.
then it's up to them to,
Well, but in a lot of these, you can rent an apartment too with all utilities covered,
Right,
you know,
Oh.
utilities included.
included in the rent, right?
Yeah.
okay, so what the state says is that we can't require separate utility lines unless a separate meeting system for billing can't be provided. It does say that we
Can we
can be,
recommend?
it does say that we can be more lenient than what the state requires, so you could just not mention anything
yeah, I
in
think,
there.
that's like, if this is part of the main dwelling unit, are you gonna require a separate furnace? You know?
If they can
Separate.
meter it, I mean, okay,
Why should the
If-
county, why
if this
should the
is-
county be into people's finances? I mean, what difference does it make if all the utilities go through the primary or if it goes separate? Wouldn't it be the people that are putting in the extra building to call a utility company and say, hey, we need another meter? I mean, why should the county be involved in that?
Right.
I mean,
I agree.
Yeah.
Agree, yeah, I don't.
what if we changed A,
Sure.
6A to say, if full utility access that includes separate metering system for billing cannot be provided by the ADU, then newer separate utility lines is allowed, but not required, or just say,
Recommended.
These are
Is-
requirements that the county can't do. The county shall not impose any of the following limitations or restrictions. So the county can't get involved in requiring utilities for separate buildings.
it says,
According to
however,
what-
if fully,
It says,
it does say, if full utility access that includes separate metering can't be provided, then the county can require newer separate utility lines. So it does say you can, if it's not billable. So, but we don't have to be
The
that
county
strict.
be
We can
involved.
take that out.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
We
So-
can be that strict, but
do we want to just take out A completely? Do we want to reword 6 at all?
Kind of like, what,
I think it needs to be mentioned because people will ask about what we do about utility lines, so I think we should have it in there, we just need to figure out how to word it. So, we could just change it to say, instead of newer separate utility lines are required, we could say, then they're recommended. And that's more of a, we can recommend it, and they could take or leave our recommendation.
Because
It
ultimately,
depends on what they're gonna be using it for. If they're straight up renting it, they might absolutely wanna have that. If it's family,
yeah.
they'll be more lenient with it.
but
well,
once again,
and if you're renting it out to somebody and they're doing things that are using more of your utility, you'd want them probably metered.
Right.
But if it is just your family, like they're just, it's for your kid or whatever.
So if we change 6A, if we just change required to recommended,
Yeah.
that would,
That takes care of it.
Yeah,
and then that would still give some guidance for if you're planning to rent it out.
But we're
Okay.
just recommending it. We're not
But it-
requiring it.
It really goes down to the purpose that you want to.
holy cow.
What you're
accept
using.
your dwelling. I want to accept your dwelling unit for what? That $100 because I.
Okay, so all I did for that was
Yeah,
strike required and change to recommended.
yeah,
Okay. Any issues with 7?
no.
Anything that I may have not included that you want to add in aside from the exterior access that we already added?
I don't
Yeah.
know of too many
Yeah.
sidewalks in a rural area. Or public
Did I put
streets. that
sidewalks?
really Messed up. Is that on 7?
Did I
Requirements
put what?
of the repairs of public streets and sidewalks? I mean, what? I don't know of too many rural areas that have
Oh,
sidewalks.
no, I'm talking about number 7 on my, On my ordinance, not on the state requirement. You're
Oh,
looking at
wrong.
the Senate file.
Gotcha, sorry,
Number 7 was about zoning certificates.
gotcha.
All right, so if I make those changes, if I add the exterior access, make the few wording changes, and I mean, is that ready to take it to public hearing?
Yeah,
I don't think so.
So whenever we have our next meeting, we'll make it a public hearing for this.
Yep.
And then other time can be used for other stuff. I know we talked about this probably too long to really talk much about wind if we wanted to get out of here early.
It's already 9 degrees, feels like -7.
It's already 7:30. I'm sorry that took so long, but at least we
Yeah,
get like,
2 hour delay, I have a 2 hour delay.
we need to get this done.
Let's, talk about,
I'm not totally sure if this can be put through without the land use plan, but since it was a new state code, I think we can try. So I think.
Who would know if we could or not?
Well, it'd be the same as if we tried to put through our solar thing, because this is technically related to zoning. So, I mean, we could still send our recommendation. I can ask, I guess.
Well, we didn't know anything about the solar not going through. I mean, we just assumed that that was good until we found out that.
Yeah, and since this is a new state thing, it'd be, and we don't have any current one on there, I don't know. We might have to put it through initially and then review it again after the land use plan gets approved next year. But we could at least get this out there for people to be able to have a reference and use it, as opposed to me going off of the state code if it comes up.
Yeah, they can comment.
right,
If something they don't like, let us
they
know.
will consider it.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, it may be like, you know, if we put it through, we may have to review it again and recertify it again after the land use plan goes through, but at least this way we would be mostly done with it, and if we had any tweaks. We're meeting enough where adding a public hearing doesn't cost us more than just meeting regularly, so I'm not worried about that part of it. If you guys are okay with that, we'll put it on a public hearing next time. And I'll keep the highlighted areas and show what we struck through for that one about the roofing of manufactured homes, so.
Okay.
Okay,
Let's talk about January meeting dates.
all right, Karen is not a bit, there's no map.
I looked at home, I think it's 7, 14, 21, and 28 are the Wednesdays.
She is not available the 14th or the 21st. We could check for non-Wednesday dates, but she's not available those.
So the first and the last are okay, huh?
And the last one might end up being that land use plan.
Oh,
So I don't know if we want to try for the 7th. See how,
In the 7th of,
January,
yeah, I won't be here.
you won't be here.
I'll be gone.
6th of January, I have hip replacement.
Oh, that's
I'll
right.
be in the hospital.
and I mean, with how snowy it was this December, who knows what January is gonna be.
But I can
I
do-
think the 19th is Martin Luther King Day.
21st, be back.
But you said Karen couldn't be here
Karen can't do the
second or third.
21st.
What if it's a different day than a Wednesday, or don't we wanna mess with that?
I'm fine with checking different dates.
It doesn't matter to me.
28th is good. Oh, I mean, yeah. 27th, 26th.
Well, that week might be when we get into the land use plan stuff. Do we want to have anything earlier than that?
Yeah, let's try to
Is
shoot.
Karen just not available those Wednesdays?
I'll have to check.
Or is she on vacation or something?
Mondays work for you at all? Carol?
Yeah, and as long as there's, I don't think there's anything going on. I mean, Monday, the
That,
January 12th, I
What's your
have,
last date you got, or
We're
you
not
want
sure
to be
yet,
back?
But
we leave.
guys, what day are you looking at for January now?
hang on.
We're talking about it.
Sorry, it's probably Tuesday.
You guys decide, cause I'll
We're
be
back for
strictly.
the week of the 19th. It's a Monday of the 19th.
Well, I think
be
in the
back.
last week might be up
Back,
to.
you know,
land use
after
plan
that,
stuff
I'm here.
With, because that's about.
So 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd.
Everybody's.
They're all
For the
good.
next week of, 26th, 27th, 28th.
Is hers just a Wednesday?
I'm gone those first 2 weeks of
Okay.
January.
But the
So
19th
Karen,
would
Karen
work,
just
a Monday?
can't do Wednesdays.
Not the 19th,
That don't work for her?
not the 19th.
How about the 20th, Tuesday?
Yeah, 20th's fine.
Tuesday, the 20th?
Was it 21 work for?
Yep, that works. The 20th works.
Okay.
Karen,
To open the building up.
Is that the first date you're going with for January, the 20th?
Looking like it.
Yeah, that's gonna be
Okay.
the first date for.
That's a Tuesday.
Makes no difference. I'll probably be on a computer. I don't think I'll be out of the house
Yeah.
yet.
That's the
That's right.
there's a front
I mean,
yard.
you guys decide whatever you want and I'll just follow along.
Appreciate that.
Using this one, do we want to do another one after that, then the next week?
Well, she's wondering about the land, is that gonna be the land use?
Let's just take it.
We get that one in then.
Maybe, she's not.
Let's just stick with the 20th for now. If we want to do the land use plan for like the 27th, we can maybe email out. I still need to do public hearing before we have our meeting on the 20th. But at least this way we've got calendars in. If we need to make the 20th into the land use plan one, we could do that. I'd say if we go past the 20th, let's just do an email style. Doug can let me know if he wants me to reach out, or you guys can reach out to me and I can confer with everybody.
For now, we will meet Tuesday, January 20th,
Tuesday, January 20th,
6 P.M. like usual.
6 PM like usual.
And we can put on our agenda, start number,
Actually do wind stuff.
right, actually do the wind stuff.
Public hearing though.
And we'll have the public hearing on that accessory dwelling units.
So public hearing, if we're not doing land use plan, we'll do wind stuff.
All right,
Okay,
Last time our public hearing went really quick, so unless we
Right.
totally overhaul something with a comment, hopefully we can be pretty quick about that. So the public hearing, ADU, wind or land use. If we do land use, I will let Marty know we're gonna throw in the public hearing first, but. What do you guys like chuckling over there? Did they move something weird?
we gotta hear this.
Okay,
We have a motion to adjourn, we have a second, is there any discussion?
I missed two motions. You guys were really quiet about
Steve moved it, Wade seconded.
Steve and Wade.
All in favor, say aye.
uh,
We are adjourned.
Drive safe going home.
Thank you.